It was a night that seemed endless cold, merciless, and silent as a grave. Under the flickering streetlights on the outskirts of Baton Rouge, two thin little girls clung to each other, shivering like fragile leaves caught in a brutal wind. No home, no mother, no future. Only a long, dark road behind them, a wound that would never heal. "Please, sir," the older girl choked out, her voice trembling, eyes brimming with tears. "Could you take my sister and me somewhere safe? Our mother, she just passed away." Before them stood either hope or complete despair, and all they had left in this world was each other. Chapter 1. A House Full of Hope. On the outskirts of Baton Rouge, where wooden rooftops crowd beneath old oak trees and cicadas hum through the heavy southern heat, there stood a small yellow house, weathered but warm. Its porch paint was peeling. The windows were always left open to catch the breeze. But inside, it wasn't just a house. It was a world of its own, built from love, tears, and whispered promises after dark. Marcus Johnson was the man of the house, tall, broad-shouldered, a black man with quiet eyes, always looking like he carried the weight of the whole world on his back. Each morning, he slid under his old Chevy truck, hands stained in grease, sweat dripping down his faded tank top. He didn't say much, but the way he moved around his wife and kids made it feel, at least back then, like he was a husband and father you could count on. Inside, Elena, his wife, stood at the stove, flipping pancakes. She was the kind of woman with eyes soft as velvet, tight curls tucked into a bun, and a walk that moved like a sad poem. She flipped pancakes as soul music played from a crackling old radio by the window. The kitchen smelled like butter, cinnamon, and love. On the living room floor, their daughters played. Naya, the older one, 11 years old and wise beyond her age, was helping her little sister Amaya tie her shoelaces. Amaya had a smile as sweet as sugar cane, and a laugh so pure it could melt away the day's weariness. "One day I'll be a big-shot lawyer," Nia shouted. "And I'll paint pictures for the White House," Amaya chimed in, not to be outdone. Elena laughed. She walked over, knelt down, and pulled both girls into her arms. The pancakes began to burn on the stove, but no one cared. "All you need is to believe in yourselves," she whispered, kissing each of their foreheads. "No matter how hard this world turns its back on you, Mama will always be here, and your daddy will too." She paused at the mention of her husband. The words didn't come out fully, as if a wound inside her had never quite closed. Marcus walked in just then. He gave her a faint smile, placed a hand on her shoulder, and kissed her cheek quickly, more out of habit than affection. Elena set a plate of pancakes in front of him. "You're heading out early today?" she asked. Got a few things to take care of," Marcus replied, sitting down without meeting her eyes. Elena noticed something, a shift, but like many black women who've learned to carry storms in silence for the sake of their children, she didn't press. She simply turned back to the stove, turned off the burner, and stood there for a long while, watching the world through the window. Outside, the sun was rising. A school bus pulled up in front of the house. Nia kissed her mother, took Amaya's hand, and stepped outside. Marcus had already left 10 minutes earlier. The door clicked shut behind them. Elena stood alone in the kitchen. The soul music played on. Ain't no sunshine when he's gone. She rested her hand on her belly, gently, a gesture filled with both longing and fear. Inside her was a new life, their third child, a symbol of hope, and also the heaviest weight she'd ever carried. She wasn't sure if Marcus still loved her, wasn't sure if this pregnancy brought him joy, or just another burden, but she hoped, because she'd made a promise to herself no matter what happened, she would protect her children at any cost. At that very moment, on the school bus, Nia stared out the window. Near the gas station on the corner, she spotted her father standing with a woman. They were laughing, and the way he leaned in toward her wasn't the way he smiled at Mom. "Nia, who's that Daddy's talking to?" Amaya asked softly, gripping her backpack straps. Nia didn't answer. She simply looked away, tightening her grip on her little sister's hand. Inside her, something began to stir, a quiet warmth. The kind that didn't comfort, but warned. Back at home, Elena still stood in the kitchen, unaware that the dream of a peaceful home was already beginning to crack, and the first wind of the coming storm had just slipped in through the window. Chapter 2, A Broken Promise. Elena could feel it. Something was shifting, not in the air, but in the silences growing between her and Marcus longer now. Heavier, sharp like a thin blade. There was a time, years ago, when Marcus had written her a love letter, passed through the stained glass window of their church. He'd promised to love her through every storm this life could throw. He swore he'd never make her cry unless it was from joy. She kept that letter in a wooden box under their bed. Every time Marcus grew distant or angry, she would pull it out and read it again, reminding herself that he once knew how to love, once knew how to be gentle. But lately, every pregnancy brought more space between them, more cold. This time was no different. Marcus no longer asked how she was feeling. He no longer touched her belly the way he used to. And then one night, 4 months into the pregnancy, Marcus came home late. There was a strange perfume on his shirt. He walked in without a word, passed the cold dinner on the table, and climbed the stairs like a ghost without a name. Elena stood still, both hands on the table, silent, from the bedroom door. Nia watched her mother with worried eyes. She said nothing, but in those eyes, dark and deep as the ocean, so much was already understood. The next day, while Marcus was working on the truck outside, Elena walked up to him slowly. The summer wind buzzed through the porch screen, but it did nothing to ease the chill in her chest. "Marcus." He didn't look up. "I heard people are saying you've been seeing someone." Marcus paused, but said nothing. "Is it true?" Her voice wavered slightly. He stood up, wiping his hands on a grease-stained rag, and finally looked at her. His eyes were hollow, like she no longer lived inside them. "If you heard it," he said flatly, "then why ask me?" "Because I need to hear it from your mouth." Marcus gave a dry laugh. "Fine, yeah, it's true. And you want to know why? Because you only give me girls 3 times now, and I'm betting this one'll be another." Elena froze. She never thought he'd say it. "Not like that? Not with that kind of cold?" "Marcus, you know I can't choose the baby's gender. That's not on me. But I'm a black man." He shot back. "I need a son, someone to carry my name, to walk into this world like a damn warrior. And you couldn't give me that. But I found someone who can..." Something cracked inside Elena, not just because he'd betrayed her, but because he said it like she had never meant a thing. She stood there, one hand on her belly, her eyes were dry, but inside, she was crying herself empty. Marcus turned and walked away. He stepped back into the house, shut the door like nothing had happened. Elena remained outside, in front of the garage, not knowing whether to go back in or disappear completely. That night, after the girls were asleep, Marcus returned home with another woman. Sasha Green, young, curvy, wearing a tight dress, red lipstick, and a smug little smile. Elena stood at the doorway, blocking their way. Sasha licked her lips and turned to Marcus. "I thought she'd cry, but look at her. She's tough." Marcus didn't say a word. He gently pushed Elena aside and invited Sasha in. Elena stood frozen. She thought she was strong, but seeing her husband carry luggage for another woman that broke her. The pain wasn't in her chest. It was deeper in the part of her heart where she kept her trust, her sacrifice, her waiting, and now it was being crushed beneath Sasha's stiletto heels. Elena stepped forward and grabbed Sasha's arm. "Get out of my house!" Sasha shook her off like dust on her shoulder. Elena couldn't hold it in. She raised her hand and slapped her. Not hard, but hard enough to make the room go silent. Marcus lunged, no words, just a slap back so hard Elena fell to the floor. Then the first punch, then the second. She curled up, shielding her stomach, trying to crawl away, but he didn't stop. Nia bolted from her bed, rushing out. "Daddy, no, don't hit Mama." Amaya screamed from the hallway. Elena gasped for breath, blood running from her mouth. Marcus finally stepped back, shaking his head, turning to Sasha. "Go upstairs." He left Elena lying on the floor like a nameless shadow. Nia dropped to her knees beside her. She whispered, "I'm here, Mama, I'm here." The night wind slipped through the window, and not a single star was left in the sky. Chapter 3. The final night. St. Mercy Hospital was just 3 blocks from the Johnson home. It was where both daughters had entered the world, where Elena once held Marcus's hand through the pain, where she smiled through tears, calling his name as the contractions came harder, faster. Now, it was where she returned on a stretcher, in the middle of the night, blood soaking through her clothes, lips pale and cracked. Nia ran beside her mother's stretcher, her small feet pounding the tile floor, still holding Amaya's hand tight. She wasn't crying anymore. She was too scared to cry. She knew that if she stopped, if she fell, there would be no one left. The hospital hallway buzzed with harsh fluorescent light. Doors slammed. Everything moved too fast. A nurse pulled the girls away from the emergency room doors, leaving Elena behind the thick metal barrier. In the waiting room, Nia sat curled into herself, knees to chest, staring blankly at the floor. Amaya lay quietly in her sister's lap, fingers clenched in her shirt, breathing slow and shallow, numb from the shock. Outside, the sky was still black. It felt like the whole world had turned off its lights and walked away. An hour later, a man in a white coat stepped out. Dr. Harrison Black, early 40s, a face shaped by years of experience, and eyes carrying the kind of compassion no medical school could teach. He knelt down to face the girls. "Are you Elena's daughters?" Nia nodded slowly. Is our mom okay?" Harrison hesitated. 1 second, 2, 3. Then he exhaled, dropped to one knee. "Your mother was incredibly strong," he said softly. She fought as hard as she could." He couldn't say more. Nia understood. She brought her hand to her mouth, a dry sob bursting out, her body trembling uncontrollably. Amaya didn't understand. She looked from her sister to the doctor, then whispered, "When's Mommy coming out?" No one answered. Dr. Harrison gently placed a hand on Nia's shoulder. "Is your father here?" "No," Nia whispered. "He's the one who hurt her." Silence. A heavy, aching silence. Harrison stared at the child, knowing exactly what he had to do. As he turned to call the police, he realized his hands were shaking, not from fear, but from fury. He knew men like Marcus Johnson, men with money, men with influence, men who buried their sins under power and reputation. But he swore to himself he wouldn't let these girls be forgotten. The next morning, Harrison drove the girls back to the Johnson home. The front gate creaked open. Marcus stood on the porch in a white shirt, tie loose, eyes red from guilt or exhaustion. No one could tell. Sasha stepped out behind him, one hand resting on her belly, as if to flaunt what she now had, and what Elena no longer could. Harrison kept his tone level. "Mr. Johnson, I'm Dr. Harrison, your wife. She didn't make it. She passed last night, and the baby didn't survive either." Marcus staggered back like he'd been punched in the chest. He hadn't meant to kill Elena. He'd just lost control. He didn't think she would die. Not her. "My kids, where are they?" Harrison gently nudged the girls forward. Nia stood tall, staring directly at her father. But her eyes had no innocence left. Amaya clung to her sister's side. Marcus bent down. "I'm so sorry." Nia took a step back. "We don't need your sorry," she said. "We needed Mom, but you took her away." For a moment, Marcus looked like he might embrace them, but Sasha let out a soft cough and sat dramatically on the sofa, hand on her stomach. Marcus turned away. "She needs to rest. Go inside." The girls stood there. No one called them in. No one asked if they were hungry. No one held them. And then, the real horror began. That night, for the first time in their lives, Nia and Amaya slept on the floor. No blanket, no goodnight kiss. Sasha was the one who decided. She said they couldn't sleep in Elena's bed anymore. From now on, she said coldly, "I'm your mother, and I don't do weak women." The next morning, Sasha dumped cold water on the girls to wake them up. Nia shivered. Amaya curled into herself. When Nia tried to apologize on behalf of her sister, Sasha slapped her. "Shut your mouth," she snapped. "You only speak when I say so." When Marcus left for work, Sasha handed out chores. Nia had to wash all the laundry by hand. Amaya had to scrub the floors. "She's too little," Nia pleaded. Sasha's answer was another slap. When hunger gnawed at them, the girls snuck into the kitchen for cold rice. Sasha caught them. She dumped the whole pot over Nia's head. Amaya clung to her sister, sobbing. That evening, Marcus came home. Sasha served dinner just for the two of them. The girls sat forgotten. Amaya couldn't take it anymore. She crawled to the table, looked up at her father with trembling lips. "Daddy, I haven't eaten all day." Marcus froze. Sasha gripped her spoon tight, her face drained of color. "What?" Marcus asked. "My sister hasn't either." Marcus set down his fork. He looked at Sasha. "Why?" "They didn't do their chores." "They're children," he snapped. He shoved his chair back, picked up Amaya, and placed his own plate of food in front of the girls, then walked away without another word. That night, Sasha sobbed loudly, accusing Marcus of betrayal for choosing his dead wife's children over her. The next morning, after Marcus left early for work, Sasha grabbed a leather belt. She beat both girls until blood traced their backs. Nia didn't scream. She just stared at Sasha. And in that stare, there was nothing childlike left. Every day after, the yellow house became a deeper, darker kind of hell, and no one heard their cries for help. No one, except for the one person no one expected to become their salvation. Chapter 4. The Secret Behind the Door. In the yellow house that once overflowed with love, only the sharp footsteps of Sasha remained, and the bitter smell of ointment soaked into torn bed sheets. Silence no longer meant peace, it meant fear, a quiet crack forming beneath everything. Nia sat beneath the staircase, knees hugged tight to her chest, counting her own breaths, making sure Sasha couldn't hear the sound of the sobs that had dried up since yesterday. She no longer knew what hurt more, her mother's death, her father's fists, or the hollow look in his eyes when he left her and Amaya lying on that cold, hard floor. From behind her, a soft whisper. "Sis, do we still have to clean the yard tomorrow?" Nia didn't answer. She was listening closely to voices from the living room. A man's voice, low, rough, saying something dangerous in a whisper. "How much longer?" he asked. "We've wasted enough time, Sasha." "You think it's easy?" Sasha's voice was sharp and cold. "No one kills a man like Marcus Johnson without raising suspicion." "Poison him! Quiet! Clean! No blood!" There was a pause. Then Sasha gave a soft, cruel laugh. "Not yet. He hasn't signed over the assets. He's still watching me, still suspicious. But once I give him a son, he'll sign everything under the baby's name. Then he won't be of use anymore," the man finished. "And those little girls," he asked, lowering his voice. "We can't have them growing up and coming back for revenge." "Relax," Sasha said smoothly. "I've got a plan. A little accident. Fall into the lake. No one finds the bodies." Nia froze. Her heart slammed so hard she was afraid it echoed. She turned toward Amaya. Her little sister's eyes were still confused, but Nia knew they couldn't stay. Not one more night. She pulled Amaya into their room, locked the door, and whispered, "Listen to me. Tonight, when she's asleep, we leave." "Where will we go?" Amaya asked. "Anywhere," Nia said, "as long as it's not here." That night, the house fell into a fake kind of quiet. Sasha lay curled in Marcus's bed, pretending to be in pain. The strange man was gone. Marcus slept deeply, thanks to the tea Sasha had laced with pills. Nia lay still, counting the ticks of the kitchen clock. 1 a.m. She got up. She grabbed a small backpack, packed a few clothes, a sweater their mother had knitted, Amaya's sketchbook. She woke her sister with a finger to her lips. "Don't ask. Just follow me." They crept from the room, bare feet brushing against the cold wooden floor. Nia avoided looking down the hallway, where her mother had once collapsed, blood pooling across the floorboards. The front door wasn't locked. The night air sliced across her face, cold and sharp, but she didn't flinch. She knew if they stayed, they would die. The two girls bolted across the yard, over wet grass and under moonless sky. No one knew. No one could stop them. Sometimes, to survive, you have to leave everything, even memory, behind. 2 blocks down, beneath a flickering streetlight, stood a man waiting for the bus, hands in his pockets, shoulders hunched. He looked like someone who'd been waiting forever or just had nowhere else to go. Nia pulled Amaya closer and stepped toward him. Her voice was hoarse, thin like wind through broken glass. "Sir, please, can you take my sister and me somewhere? A shelter? Maybe our mom, she passed away, and we don't have anyone left." The man knelt down, looked at Naya's swollen eyes and the scratch on Amaya's cheek. He didn't ask questions. He just nodded. "Get in. I'll take you somewhere safe." Nia gripped her sister's hand. For the first time in nights, she didn't feel cold. And then they vanished into the dark, like 2 baby birds just barely escaping the flames racing toward their nest. Chapter 5. Where children are given new names. The ride carried them through empty streets, where streetlights lit only half the truth, and shuttered windows seemed to hold a city asleep under some silent curse. The man's name was Mr. Carter, a retired veteran, skin dark and lined, with a voice deep and steady, like morning prayer. He didn't ask questions. He simply reached back and handed Naya a worn wool sweater from the back seat, then pulled into a 24-hour bakery to buy 2 sweet rolls. "Eat, kids," he said, eyes still on the road. Little ones shouldn't carry the weight adults put on their shoulders. Nia took the pastry with trembling hands. Amaya devoured hers like it might be the last sweet thing she'd ever taste. The drive stretched nearly 2 hours, through crumbling suburbs and dying industrial blocks. When dawn began to creep over the horizon, they arrived at a large white iron gate, rusted and worn, with a faded sign. New Horizon Children's Home. Mr. Carter stepped out, pressed the buzzer. An older woman answered, silver hair pulled into a tight bun, blue nursing scrubs crisp against her dark Haitian skin. Her name was Missou, Lorraine. Her face was stern, but her eyes held something Nia thought no longer existed: kindness. "Whose kids are these, Mr. Carter?" she asked. "They belong to Life," he said simply. "Found them by the roadside. They need a new start." Ms. Lorraine nodded once. She reached out her hand. "Come here, little ones." Nia hesitated, but when she looked down at Amaya, at those wide, tired eyes, she squeezed her sister's hand and stepped through the gate. The iron door closed behind them with a soft clang. Not loud, but to Nia, it sounded like a world severing itself from the past. New Horizon didn't smell like home. There were no sounds of breakfast cooking, no mother's voice calling them awake, no worn porch doors swinging in the breeze. But there were no bells, no screams, no blood-stained floors in the middle of the night. Only other children, silent, eyes too old for their small faces, birds without nests, learning to believe the sky still existed. Ms. Lorraine led them into a small office. She sat down across from Nia, placing a steaming mug of cocoa in front of her. "Can you talk, baby?" Nia nodded. "What's your name?" "Nia Johnson, and this is my sister, Amaya." Lorraine made notes in a thick, worn ledger. "Your parents?" "My mama's gone. My daddy, he's not our daddy anymore." Lorraine nodded slowly. She didn't pry. She had heard too many stories, but this one felt different. There was something in Nia's eyes, a cut so deep, it refused to bleed. "You'll be safe here," Ms. Lorraine said. "Both of you." 3 days later, a couple visited the home. Black, middle-aged, simple clothes, gentle smiles, from Atlanta. The husband was a pastor, the wife a school teacher. They had no children of their own. When the wife saw Amaya, she nearly wept. "She looks just like my baby sister used to." They applied to adopt, but only Amaya. Nia stood in the middle of the room as the director explained, her fists clutching her sleeves so tightly her knuckles turned white. "No, we can't be separated." The director softened her voice. "She'll be well cared for. They have means. They're kind people. But they're not her family," Nia said simply. Mrs. Lorraine entered then, her voice firm as steel. "No one splits blood if there's a choice." She turned to the couple. "These girls are a package. You want one. You take both or none." The woman looked at Nia, this tiny, solemn girl with hair pulled back neatly, eyes too old for her age, a child who had survived a private war. "We'll take them both," she whispered. "We can't break that love." That night, for the first time in months, Naya slept in a real bed, with real sheets, under a real roof. Amaya curled up beside her, breathing steady, their hands clasped even in sleep. Outside the window, dawn stretched its fingers through sheer white curtains, glittering softly. Proof that even in a brutal world, there was still room for kindness. And somewhere far away, in a crumbling yellow house where Sasha preened in front of a mirror, no one realized the two tiny seeds they had tried to crush had flown beyond their reach. They didn't need revenge. They only needed survival. And sometimes survival itself is the greatest victory of all. Chapter 6. A Late Awakening. Marcus Johnson woke with a dull, aching pain stretching down his spine. Sunlight slipped through the crack in the curtains, illuminating a room still heavy with the cheap perfume Sasha wore. He sat up, rubbed his eyes. For a moment, something felt off, a small thing, but the emptiness was sharp. Then he remembered, yesterday, he hadn't seen his daughters. He stepped into the hallway, calling down the stairs, "Nia Amaya." No answer, only the low hum of a radio from the living room and the dragging shuffle of Sasha's slippers on the floor. He headed straight to the girls' room. The beds were empty, sheets twisted. No sign anyone had slept there. Marcus frowned, spinning around, searching for Sasha. She sat at the kitchen table, flipping through a fashion magazine, a glass of orange juice sweating in her hand. "Where are the kids?" he snapped. Sasha looked up, feigning surprise. "They're probably still sleeping. The beds are empty." She shrugged, sighing dramatically. "Maybe they went outside. Kids do that." "Marcus?" But it didn't sit right. A low, gnawing anxiety began to coil in his chest. Marcus searched the house, living room, backyard. Nothing. He called the gate guard. No one had seen them. His heart started pounding. He stormed back inside, eyes narrowing at Sasha. "Since when did you stop keeping an eye on my kids?" Sasha smirked. "Maybe since you started pretending to care about them." "Marcus, don't forget you gave me the right to raise them." His fists clenched at his sides. There was something in Sasha's eyes, not anger, not exhaustion, something colder, contempt. The same empty, hollow look he had seen once before, staring back at him in the mirror the night he turned his back on Elena. A flash of memory pierced through him, Nia screaming for her mother, Amaya's cries, blood staining the wooden floor. Marcus stepped closer, grabbing Sasha's arm. "Tell me, where are my kids?" Sasha yanked her arm free, shouting, "You're hurting me, I'm pregnant. Remember?" Marcus let go, but he didn't back down. "If I find out you touched them, if you did anything to them, I swear, I'll burn this whole damn world down." Sasha clutched her belly, sobbing theatrically, but behind the crocodile tears, a quick, fleeting smirk crossed her lips, calculated, cruel. Marcus bolted out the door. He didn't know where he was going. He just knew he had to find them before it was too late. That day, he searched everywhere he could think of: the park, the school, the corner store. He printed out their photos, asking strangers if they'd seen two little girls. No one had. As evening fell, Marcus collapsed onto a park bench, the sunset washing his sweat-soaked face in red and gold. A child walked past, holding his father's hand. That simple, ordinary sight hit Marcus harder than any blow he'd ever taken. He once had it all: a home, a wife who loved him with her whole heart, two daughters who looked up at him like he was their whole world. And he had thrown it away, not in a single moment, but piece by piece, through selfishness, through silence, through every terrible choice chained together like links pulling him straight into hell. Marcus bowed his head. His broad shoulders shook with broken, heaving sobs. If God was up there, he must have turned his face away by now. Meanwhile, in a town hours away from Baton Rouge, Naya and Amaya sat by the window at New Horizon Children's Home, watching the sky bleed into a deep, velvety purple. Nia didn't know her father was searching for them, didn't know that even barren ground could sometimes sprout regret. But in that moment she didn't care. All she knew was that her hand was still wrapped tightly around her sister's. And sometimes, in a world full of betrayal, holding on to love, even a small, battered piece of it, is enough to keep a heart beating. Chapter 7. The Price of Lies. Marcus Johnson came home close to midnight, his shoes caked in dust, his heart hollowed out like a soldier who had lost the war. The front door creaked as he pushed it open, and what hit him first wasn't the familiar scent of family, but the bitter stench of cigarettes, cheap liquor, and too much perfume. In the living room, Sasha lounged across the sofa, legs crossed, whiskey glass in hand, a thin cloud of smoke curling from her lips. She made no effort to hide her comfort. The house was no longer a home. It was a stage, and Sasha was its queen, while Marcus was nothing more than a lost, wandering fool. He stood there, staring at her. The faded yellow ceiling light cast shadows over her heavily made-up face. But even makeup couldn't hide the cracks in her cold, empty eyes. "What did you do to my children?" Marcus's voice rasped out, raw and broken. Sasha shrugged. "I didn't do anything. Maybe they got tired of living with a father like you." Marcus's fists curled so tightly his nails bit into his palms. He didn't believe her. Not anymore. Not the fake kindness. Not the sugar-coated lies hiding poison underneath. He turned and charged toward the stairs, determined to search the house again as if by some miracle he might find his daughters hiding in a closet, curled up under a bed. But he froze when something slipped from Sasha's pocket. A small, faded key, not a house key. Marcus bent down and picked it up. "Immediately!" Sasha sprang to her feet. "Give it back!" Marcus stepped out of her reach, narrowing his eyes. Then it hit him: the basement. There had always been an old storage room down there, locked, forgotten. Without a word, Marcus bolted for the basement door. Sasha shrieked behind him. Marcus, no! But it was too late. The lock clicked open. Marcus switched on his phone's flashlight and shined it into the darkness. No Nia, no Amaya, just stacks of broken furniture, dusty boxes and papers, folders, scattered contracts, property transfer forms, life insurance documents, and there an emergency adoption application. Sasha Green listed as the legal guardian of 2 minor children, parents unknown. Marcus staggered back. Numb. He turned, finding Sasha at the top of the stairs, eyes blazing. You plan to adopt them, he choked out. To kill them. Sasha laughed, a deep, gravelly sound, like stones tumbling through a dry ravine. What did you expect, she spat. You handed them to me. You ignored them for your stupid lust and pride. I just did what needed to be done. If I couldn't secure my future by giving you a son, I'd find another way. Marcus reeled, as if every word was another blow to the head. He had lost his wife, he had lost his daughters, and now he was losing everything else too. No shouting, no fighting. Marcus just stood there, silent, when the police burst through the door like God himself had finally handed down judgment. The neighbors had called 911 after hearing the screams. An investigation followed quickly, and as caseworkers dug deeper, they uncovered missing persons reports, old evidence of abuse, and bitter testimonies from those who had once seen Naya and Amaya wandering in the night. Sasha Green was arrested, charged with child abuse, conspiracy to commit murder, and fraud. Her denials faded into the cold walls of her jail cell, as if she had never existed at all. And Marcus sat alone in the empty living room, his head bowed into trembling hands. The police gave him time. There was no direct charge against him for Elena's death, not enough evidence. But Marcus knew he had sentenced himself long ago, miles away, in a simple pale blue house. Nia and Amaya sat on the front porch, wrapped in the warmth of their new family. Their foster mother held them close, reading aloud a story about forgiveness and new beginnings. Nia looked up at the night sky, where the stars glittered not like old scars, but like quiet promises. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but she knew this much. Sometimes, to step into the light, you have to walk through a whole lot of darkness first. And this time she would never let go of her sister's hand again. Chapter 8. A new day begins. The sun rose slowly over the small town where Naya and Amaya had begun their new life. Golden light filtered through the heavy branches of old oak trees, spilling warmth onto the uneven cobblestone streets, bathing the pale blue house at the end of the shaded lane. In the kitchen, their foster mother, the woman fate had sent as a silent act of redemption, was cooking breakfast. The soft sizzle of pancakes on a cast-iron skillet filled the air, gentle and familiar, stirring distant memories. Nia sat at the table, a workbook open in front of her, but her eyes weren't on the pages. She watched Amaya laughing, coloring in a brand new book, her smile untouched by all they had survived. "Are you okay?" Nia, the woman asked, her voice warm as the earth. Nia looked up, meeting her eyes. She nodded slowly. I'm okay. But deep down, Nia knew she was still learning how to believe good things could stay, that after loss, the heart doesn't heal all at once. It stitches itself back together slowly, carefully, threaded by fragile hopes and the small kindnesses that follow. That afternoon, they walked to the town park. Children raced and tumbled across the grass, flying kites, shrieking with laughter, falling without fear. A world where pain didn't wait behind every door. Nia stood beneath a sprawling oak, face tilted to the sky. Maybe her mother was somewhere up there beyond the clouds. She didn't believe in cheap comforts like everything happens for a reason. No, some things happened because of cruelty, because of silence, because people who should have spoken up chose to look away. But she believed this her mother would want her to keep walking, head high, spine straight, and above all, never let go of Amaya's hand. Without thinking, Nia squeezed her little sister's hand tighter. Sis, Amaya said, looking up at her. You'll stay with me forever. Right. Nia smiled a real smile, the first one in a long time. I promise. It was a small promise, spoken softly, but in a universe where so many promises were carried away by the wind, this one was heavy, solid, unshakable. Hundreds of miles away, in a cold federal prison, Marcus Johnson sat alone in his tiny cell, the flickering light above him buzzing faintly. He had all the time in the world to think about what he had lost, what he had destroyed. He wrote a letter he knew might never be read. To Nia and Amaya. If you remember me at all, even as a scar, I hope you know I'm sorry. I was weak. I was selfish. I failed to do what a black man should have done, protect his family. I don't ask for forgiveness. I only hope, somewhere out there, you live better lives than the one I gave you. I love you, even if I never knew how to show it, even if it's too late. He folded the letter, tucked it into a drawer where it would sit, like an unheard prayer. 1 year later, Nia stood at the gates of her new middle school. Pinned to her shirt was a small badge. Captain, Literature Club. She smiled as she spotted Amaya sprinting across the playground, hair flying, waving a piece of paper scribbled with crayon drawings of two little girls holding hands. The world would never give them back what they lost, but it had given them a chance to rebuild with their own hands, with their own hearts. And Naya, after everything she had endured, knew one thing. She was no longer a victim. She was a survivor, and that was the greatest victory of all. There are some stories that don't end with a period. They live on in our memories, in the scars we carry, and in the way we learn to love again despite it all. Today's story reminds us blood can betray, but love, loyalty, and sacrifice, when found, become the only light that never fades. Here at Tales of Black, the stories we tell aren't just entertainment. They are reminders that no matter where you were born, no matter the color of your skin, no matter how dark your past may seem, you have the right to step into the light, You have the right to live a free and full life. If today's story touched your heart, we invite you to leave a comment below. Share with us how you've faced loss, how you've dared to love, because here at Tales of Black, every story deserves to be heard. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you can continue walking this journey with us as we seek out the most beautiful pieces of our shared soul. Thank you for being part of Tales of Black. We'll see you again in the next story.